camera.
Let's go.
First, gotta clap for the audio.
Alrighty.
Oh, that was loud and proud.
That was a good one.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Ladies and gentlemen. Wait, one sec, everyone. I want you guys to just remember one thing. We're back!
Hey. Wow.
We're not lying this time. I know you guys are probably thinking, this is not the first, nor the second, nor the third time that we might have actually said something like this. But this time, I think it's actually for real. But with all jokes aside, everyone, welcome back to the Korean Always podcast. I'm back with the man, the myth, the legend, George.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, I'm always happy to be back. I'm ready to get into some new stories, new things that we could talk about. And yeah, it's been a long while, but I'm ready, excited, and yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's go. So maybe
same old man.
Yeah, what could we kick this one off with? Because I've been reading a lot of books lately, and I was going to get into that. But if there's anything else we wanted to discuss beforehand, to state it now. Yeah.
Things to talk. Well, okay, first and foremost, you guys saw the drippy vlogs. Not really a vlog, but a couple episodes I'm joking. The episodes we uploaded, right? The episodes we were able to upload when I was in Korea. As you guys know, I actually made my return back to the States, back home into my dorm room, actually. Brought back home a couple of Korean drip, as you guys might be able to see. So some light, just like nothing crazy, but a little bit. But yeah, I mean, Korea was a movie. I don't even know how to say any more than that. There's so much we want to talk about. So we thought if anything we could do, we might as well just do like a catch up. Just a little bit, just like talk about the things going on, the things we're feeling, how much immersion are we doing? Where does immersion play into like our daily lives now, or how far have we come with output, things of that such? George, what do you think you want to kick us off with, my guy?
Yeah, so we could talk about how much we're immersing, because that was like quite a thing. I feel like people are quite curious about that. I don't know why. I feel right. When I watch other people on YouTube as well, I'm always like, oh, how much they're studying, like what they're doing. So we could just talk a little bit about that.
Right.
And
all right.
So my immersion routine as it is right now, obviously, as most of you know already, I'm studying at university where all my lectures are in Korean, and I don't have much time to use English apart from when I socialize with my non-Korean speaking friends, which is not as many as most international students, because I spend all my time in Korean classes doing Korean clubs, and just Korean all the time, Korean always. There you go. That's a nice
overall the perfect immersion environment. W's for George.
Yeah,
George. Okay.
It's pretty much all the time, and I have cut off like watching English YouTube. There was like a period of like a few months where I would be watching like a solid hour of like English YouTube a day, because I kind of slipped back and I was like, I'm already like decent enough at Korean, like whatever, like I don't have to get much better. But now I've very much gone back to full AJAT, full a cat, I guess you could say, sticking to the grind, and it's been going very well, because I noticed that through doing university, I actually do a class in Japanese, and with doing a third language, I kind of noticed how much my sort of second language is like got a little bit more to go.
Yeah, right.
Whereas when I was just doing Korean only, I thought like, oh yeah, I'm so good. Like I basically just mastered it. Like I'm just so good. Whereas the more I look at, actually, I'm kind of weak in this other language. It gives you a lot of perspective. I don't really know the exact reason why. Maybe it's to do with like you know your sort of where your vocabulary is at. So for example, my English is obviously my best sort of language, so my vocabulary is like through the roof, and then I notice where my Korean vocabulary falls off more when I look at other languages. So that's been a good bit of perspective for me to go, actually what I do want is getting better Korean vocabulary, not like doing the whole polyglot game where you learn other languages to like a good enough level.
Right.
So yeah, I'm fully on that. I don't know what your thoughts are with that, but anyway, how's your immersion routine been going? I think people might want to be
man, the immersion routine, I won't lie, guys. I have to be an honest lad. I can't lie to you guys.
No cap on the podcast.
Ever since I got back from Korea, so like let's just like put things in perspective. Like when I was in Korea, it was like Korea 99.9% of the time. Life was good. I was outputting, feeling myself a little bit, able to like really express myself in class, really make those connections with friends. I was on a basketball team, etc. So I got like a lot of cool club experiences. So then jumping back to the States, I won't lie, I had a culture shock moment where I was like reverse culture shock,
Yeah.
Turning back home, where I was like, yo, I won't be able to eat that gotta be Tim anymore. Like I won't be able to eat all that good Korean food. And I was actually like in my feels a little bit, like just thinking about all the food I was not gonna be able to consume anymore. And like the convenience of like traveling to like Pyeongchang, like in the middle of the night, pick up anything you want. Like you don't need to worry about like there's always 24/7 opportunities to get stuff. Yeah. There's always something happening. Like, it was such a W. But like out here, like while I'm back in DC, not the same. It's not the same, but like obviously there are the pros to DC. I get to see my old friends. That was obviously a big W, you know. Why am I saying W? Let's cut that out. Sorry. A big I've been saying W a lot recently. That's a tangent.
Yeah.
But that was a big positive, obviously returning back home. And in all, let's get to the immersion part. I kind of slacked like the first couple months of this year. I won't lie. I started to almost, in certain ways, like after returning from Korea, it's like I had satisfied, in many ways, I felt like I satisfied that knack or that like.
Well, you originally started to do,
right. Like I was able to do almost everything that I had imagined myself capable to do with the language.
Exactly.
I also was able to just explore the country, be able to really engage in the culture. And like after that, it's almost like part of me, that same crazy kid that I was, like immersing 22 hours a day, he was kind of gone. Like he's no longer really in me anymore. I won't lie. So like the first month or so, I completely stopped doing Toggle. The first couple months, it wasn't until like this month that I started Toggle. The Toggle tracker, which is basically tracking your immersion time, etc. I basically stopped doing that. Now I'm back on it a little bit, but yeah, long story short, I kind of was like, dang, I don't know how much. It was less so me thinking about Korean and more so I found other hobbies that I wanted to explore. Like one of the things that me and George got into in the past couple weeks, months, was like lifting, working on our bodies, going to the gym. And like that's been something that I've been like ravaged in, kind of like finally getting to like a new kind of like thing I want to grind on like every day, trying to get that grind in. That's kind of like one of the skills that almost carried over from language learning for me.
Yeah, it keeps you healthy. Good.
Right, like it keeps you healthy, but at the same time, it's like all that immersion energy is now being transferred into like, I must understand how to do this exercise. I must understand. Like I've almost carried that.
Yeah.
Right. I kind of found a new passion, right? I would say. But I wouldn't say I'm done with Korean. Because I'm still on that like, I want to keep progressing. Like I'm not done. I still like to get better. I want to improve my speaking. I want to be able to still use the language because it's actually something that I would like to do in my career. At least using the language in any sort of like type of work that I can do. That would be a really cool opportunity. And living in Korea is a new thought that I have that could happen in my future. That's
a new thought. That's news to me.
Yeah. That is what has happened for the lad Adamola for the past couple months. But you know, George.
Yeah. I mean, I've already lived in it.
Alan.
I can give you the details. Yeah.
Like I wanted to hear because I know during that, what's it called? The period while we were on our little hiatus. You obviously in Korea, they have their big winter break. And how long was that? What did you do for winter break?
Winter break, so we had, I believe, 2.5 months off, I think. If I remember correctly, that might be 2.5 months, I think. And obviously, Adamola was in Korea at the time, so me and Adamola, we already talked a little bit about this in the last episode, but we, did a lot of stuff together. And winter break, honestly, that was like kind of a hard time in terms of the sort of university work, but I made it through my first semester at that point. And I was feeling pretty good about myself because I didn't think I was going to make it to university, let alone through the first sort of semester. So yeah, that was something sort of like a big achievement for me. And this term I've been a lot more with it, like a lot more on my studies and just way more organized, being more productive. Like even just speaking to other students, I've learned, how to like organize my notes, or I don't know, just a lot more technical stuff that's helping me out, like, especially with Ademola as well, because he's obviously, like he just mentioned, he's into the gym and like working out the body. And I was already doing the gym, but I wasn't really like trying. I was just doing what they call Mugunhal in Korean, like no split, no exercise, like no plan, just going and doing whatever, just for the sake of it. And then I started to realize, like, actually, maybe if I do a certain routine, I'll probably get a little bit better. But I kept like, just thinking about it in my head and not really doing it. When I saw Ademola get this sort of passion for, working out, I was like, oh, maybe. And he started telling me about, his progress and stuff. I was like, wow, maybe I should like see what he's doing, because we are this sort of close and we can share ideas about language learning, but also other things that we find are going to be helpful to one another. I think you get what I'm trying to say. Like,
no, I know exactly what you mean, because like it's almost like
the level of trust.
It's interesting because language learning in itself is a very it's kind of weird. Like when people think of language learning from like the outside in, they're like, I can't imagine doing like I can't, like they see it as like some task that's like incredibly like, so that's impossible. I could never do it. But like for us, or like people like you guys that are starting to jump in, or that have already been like at an intermediate or approaching advanced levels, you guys would understand that like language learning is one of those skills that is, discipline is pretty much the really biggest factor in your success or not. How consistent you are versus whether you have a skill in your brain to like surpass, like, oh, I have better ability to do so and so. That doesn't matter if you aren't consistent and going to do the work every day and don't have that passion, because motivation only goes so far. You gotta have the discipline to really carry yourself through the times where you're kind of like, I'm a little tired, but like in your head you're like, I gotta get it done. And I think that kind of carries over. It's like all the different kind of things that you can do in your life, because like that's kind of like for me, like when I started going to the gym, because like honestly I never was in the gym that much. I kind of like just saw people in the gym. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. And I was kind of blessed because my parents had like pretty decent physiques that carried over to me, and I was like, oh yeah, I look decent, so like I don't really need to go to the gym. But then I kind of decided recently that I was like, you know what, I might as well maximize my potential and like really start doing, because it really feels good now after getting in, like the consistency, kind of the same passion, that like the same drive with the like language learning, like consistently getting in every day, pushing yourself to the limit, really maximizing your pushing the failure, or like maximizing the gains you can get from one exercise, like not like just to make sure that you're always giving it your all. And that's something that language learning just carried over to working out, which also can carry over to your own work, personal life, and everything else. So like
big sort of upward spiral. Like because the whole self-improvement domain, if you will, is all sort of inclusive of stuff that we're doing. So like language learning is probably, I wouldn't say it's number one, but it's big on the sort of self-improvement tier, if you will. And health, finance, relationships, probably like the sort of big sort of areas, if you will. And what I've always been interested in is becoming a better person, living my life to the fullest. And I think most people do want that, right? But there's some people who have maybe perhaps misguided information, or are just not in that stage of life yet where they're able to realize that that's perhaps what they want. Like there's obviously lots of diverse people on this planet, and I feel like the good thing is that people like me and Ademola are trying not only to just better ourselves, but to help other people as well, because there are a lot of people, like for example, even the guy who wrote Age at Katsumoto, he helps a lot of people and then just kind of stopped and was like, actually no, I'm not really that bothered. Whereas I feel like the constant sort of job, if you will, the role of helping other people is something like much bigger than everything else. Because
right.
without, so for example, like when I was learning Korean, if I hadn't have met you, would I have gotten to the place that I am now? Perhaps not. Like, and there's a lot of just energy and just general goodness in relationships and helping other people. So that was a long-ass way of saying that lately, as well as the gym, I've also been trying to focus on just social skills and general, human relationships, if you will. Because obviously, a lot of people who learn languages and the sort of archetype of human being who wants to, sit at home all day and immerse in Korean sometimes is perhaps not the most social. I mean, there are obviously, like I said, different types of people, but for my case, I kind of used, as sort of reflecting now as I speak, I kind of use Korean as kind of an excuse to just like not go and socialize, or it's so how should I say, like obsessive that it kind of made me lose my social ability, because I would literally rather stay inside and immerse in Korean than meet my friends, which was a good sacrifice for my Korean and for my life now. But that sort of time, maybe that 2-year period of where I was kind of sort of missing out on my youth, is kind of got into my head now. I was like, actually, wait, if I carry on living like this, I'm just gonna get really good at Korean, but have no one to use it with because I don't have any social skills, and I'm not gonna be, progressing in that aspect. So other things that I've been doing, and sort of like tips that I can give to other people perhaps, is obviously looking people in the eye. This guy, most people know about Jordan Peterson, but I'm not like a big super advocate of him or anything. But one of his phrases, his quotes that he did say was something along the lines of, when you look people in the eye, the thoughts about yourself disappear and you focus only on the other person. And I found that to be like very, very true in just all conversations that you have throughout the day. Like, just even looking strangers in the eyes. I mean, of course, at the beginning, it's very hard to do. But as I've practiced it, I've noticed that not only, one, do I stop thinking about myself, but two, the other person tends to have a positive reaction, tends to smile, or there's some sort of weird sort of connection where you've both been noticed. And I found that's been very powerful in terms of just leveling up your social skills, and also speaking to people in group conversations. I was already okay with like one-to-one stuff, and talking about my ideas on camera like this is fine. But in the group conversations, I tend to be kind of shy and not sort of speak up my ideas. And
tougher.
It's much tougher. And the one thing that I did learn, if I could put it into one thing, is that group conversations are just chaotic, and everyone's talking over each other and just speaking and not listening sometimes. So there is no sort of rules to the group conversation. If you just say something and perhaps people ignore you, perhaps people don't hear you, doesn't matter. Just keep going and just carry on being yourself. I found that to be very powerful, and it's gotten me a lot more further along the road to the place where I want to be in terms of my relationships aspect of life. So yeah.
W. George, everyone. Remember that. W. George. Okay. But anywho, I think kind of on what George was saying there, the whole idea of that kind of balance between maximizing my ability in the language. For those of us that might be really on that end of the spectrum, that are thinking I want to be social spectrum. Yeah, not that other spectrum.
Oh, yeah.
Social spectrum. Well, actually, not even social spectrum. I mean more the spectrum of how good do I want to be? There are those that are I want to just be able to have a conversation, order food.
Right.
Perfectly fine. Your goals are like that. You can probably accomplish that within, I'd say to be really good at just having basic conversations, 6 months, you can probably reach that level in most languages, even shorter for maybe a Spanish or French.
Right.
But outside of that, so there's B1 level, people would say. I don't really know that measure. I think that's the European or something measure.
B1, yeah.
B1 or B2. Then there are the people that are okay, I want to be good enough to have conversations with people that are maybe more specific to a certain topic. For those kind of people, likely that you would maybe prioritize learning stuff in a specific what's the word? Topic, I guess.
Domain.
Learn maybe specifically domain. That's the word to use. Something in the domain, right? You learn something specific to what people say in coffee shops. I don't know.
Yeah.
Slice of life, right? That kind of stuff. Maybe you would ignore the politics and you would ignore the news, and you're kind of not worried about understanding that stuff because you don't have conversations with people about this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then on the further end of the spectrum, it's like people that are like, okay, I want to maximize my accent. I want to make sure that when people hear me, they go, dude, there's no way that you're like totally not native, dude.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like when people hear you speak, they're like, dude, no way. When you're talking to someone on the phone, they'll be like, oh, like, 한국 사람인가요? And then be like, sorry, I'm a Wagugian. Like, come on, bro, I'm a Wagugian. Relax, I'm not that good. Like, you like tell yourself that. So like to get that kind of response from people, to get that response, it requires a little bit more like push, a little bit more kind of like thoughts to the process and more commitment in general. Like you're gonna have to commit to the hours, the time. You're gonna have to make sure that you know your weaknesses, and you approach them by targeting them as a new domain. Make sure you're getting that vocab in. Make sure you're always learning new words, learning new stuff, watching new content that you don't already know. And that's really the toughest part. At least that's really the part that I definitely know that George is in, and that I've basically been entering. It's like the stage of really engaging in content that maybe you already have a decent understanding of before, but you're really trying to like nail in the holes, trying to get the holes in.
Definitely.
And for that kind of person, and like George was saying, kind of like the whole idea of kind of sitting in your room for like 10, 12 hours and being like, oh, I don't need to talk to people. Like, what? Yeah. And like personally, I remembered like I used to be a pretty social kid. Like even like for myself, I was like pretty open to like, always going to talk to people. I never was the one to kind of be like alone in my room all the time. But when I really had something I wanted to do, or I was really committed to something, I could sit there for 10 hours and just do it. Right? Thinking about that period, like George was mentioning, like where he was kind of like in his room and he kind of forgot about like the interacting with other people. I remembered one of the coolest things for me was I was able to almost like encourage my brothers. Like I was like, every time I'd have a new like revelation in the immersion world, I'd be like, yo, bro, you wouldn't believe I was able to listen to an entire podcast and picked up 10 words, bro. I'm a legend. Like, I was saying the most random stuff, but like getting hype off that stuff and like letting my bros know, they were like, dude, no way. And like I'll be sitting down in the living room, just like no subtitles, pure Korean immersion. And they'd walk behind me and be like, yo, bro, you understand that? And I'm like, yeah, it's just, just all about the messages and like the images and stuff. When in reality, I probably was only picking up like 5% of the content. Like the whole process of like engaging and kind of like sharing that love. Because I know even people mention like, it's kind of hard to spread that. Do immersion, bros. Like, it's the way to go. Like, even for me at uni, like trying to tell people like immersion is the way. And, I was actually curious for you, George. Did you ever have an experience with like a Korean friend where you were like, hey, bro, immersion works? And they actually were like responsive?
And so every day I try and red pill people into the immersion.
You say red pill so easily now.
Yeah.
Some people overthink the word red pill.
Don't overthink that. It's just a movie reference. But
red pill is immersion.
Red pill is immersion. Blue pill being traditional learning. But I see people in Korea going to Hagwon, going to Haewayonsu, going to all these traditional methods, language exchange, etc. And every time I tell them, actually I don't even tell them first anymore. What happens is I get asked, and they tell me, like they ask me, "Hey George, how did you get so good at Korean? Like, how did you learn?" And I always tell them, like, well, I basically didn't. My normal answer is like, I only studied for like maybe an hour a day of like actual studying, and the rest of the time I just watch TV without subtitles, and that's how I stop because I don't want to give them a whole like theoretical explanation. But I can just tell them watch TV, and if they did that, they probably would see some improvement. So it's like simple to the point, bam, done it. And to this day, I don't know anyone who has actually said they've gone and done it. They'd be like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, but I'm just gonna carry on doing my Hagwon and traditional stuff because that's what they believe, and that's fine. And then there are other types of people where I've explained the full theory. I've gone, hey, listen, this is why this doesn't work. blah 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 blah. Look at me speak Korean. Surely I'm like making some sense. Like if this didn't work, then I wouldn't be able to speak this good Korean. And that's sort of my basis for why it works. And people, you know, again, I've never had anyone say like, oh, but this is way better. Surely it doesn't work. Like most people say like, oh yeah, you know, that's right. But that's probably just Korean.
It makes sense, right? Yeah.
They say it makes sense, but did I do it? No.
But they don't actually do it
on that sort of wave, and they probably haven't realized it for themselves. I think there's a big thing in just life in general, where my sort of whatever we say on this podcast is, for us, it could be true. It could be our reality, and that's completely true. And other people, until they sort of realize that truth, until they have that sort of aha moment where they figure it out for themselves.
Personal experience of like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And that sounds like very cultish, and I'm not saying like this is the truth or whatever. If you have some sort of opposite opinion, please ask, and we'll debate that, and we'll go into it, because we're not about saying, oh, this is the only thing, and if you don't do it exactly how we present it, then you're nothing. That's not what we're trying to present. We're trying to promote the most efficient way to learn languages and help people actually achieve their goals, rather than just learning a language traditionally for 5 years and not even be able to like order at McDonald's, So
like even when we think about that, like if you've ever met a person who speaks, so say you meet someone, a Korean person, or just like any person who might not be from like an English speaking country, and you find out they speak English phenomenally, ask them, just ask that person, ask anyone you know. If you already don't believe like, oh yeah, I don't know if watching shows is that important, I bet you ask any person you know that speaks their second language to a level that you're like genuinely impressed, chances are they did some form of immersion. Whether it was TV, watching shows because they enjoyed American TV and it was the only thing, they didn't have it in their language, so they watched it that way, or whether it was like another thing. 90%, 99, I want to say 99. I don't know 99, but I want to say 99% of people that actually reached a level where you are genuinely impressed, and it's like, I almost thought you were a native speaker. They did some form of immersion. Exactly. And that's the important thing for new learners to know, because then you understand, if I want to reach a level like that, if I want to aspire, if my aspirations are to speak like that person, you have to do that like kind of method. You have to at least follow some form of that, right? And we can, based on our personal experiences, we can already testify it works. And 99% of you guys already know that. But if you guys are new to the channel, or you guys haven't heard of immersion yet, oh, we got to do something for them. Oh man, what do you think?
Oh my God. Definitely. One thing, like extreme results requires extreme preparation. Like there's no doubt about that.
But talk about a quote. Oh man, Jordan. Okay.
That doesn't necessarily mean that immersion has to be extreme and painful and tiresome. It's just a matter of what we're doing to practice and why we're doing it. So, for example, if you wanted to get good at basketball, this is my sort of theory. I don't actually play basketball.
I do. I can
maybe tell me. If you're trying to get your shots on point, you want to be practicing, aiming at the hoop, and doing sort of deliberate practice where you're, constantly like taking from different shots, different angles, whatever, doing whatever you can to make sure you get your shots sort of on target. Whereas with immersion, the difference that is with language learning is, in the beginning, deliberate practice doesn't really matter. Just any practice is good, because you don't even have a foundation. You don't even hear the sounds of the language. You don't even, some languages you don't even have to read, So with the thing that immersion does, it just gives you the skill, if you will, gives you the XP, if you will, to get to the level where you can worry about the deliberate practice stuff later, which is where I'm at, like 3 years down the line. But the beautiful thing about, language learning is just, you don't have to practice in a certain way until the later stages. And that's really beautiful, because you can just do what you think is fun. You can do anything for fun in the language, whereas a lot of other activities, especially like the gym as well. I mean, realistically, for the gym, I was doing I think I said 3-4 months of just no plan, just do whatever I want to do. And now I realize, oh wait, if I want to actually make some muscle, I have to follow a specific routine and work increasing my weights and getting very deliberate with my practice. Whereas
diet together,
dieting as well, all this stuff. Whereas language learning is not that like that, and that's a good thing. But one thing I did want to ask you, Adamola, was earlier you mentioned about, oh yeah, I'd say to my brothers, like, we get hyped off this energy and having like a sort of family environment or whatever, or just other people to not necessarily take you accountable, but give you some energy. Because in my case, I was I don't have any brothers and sisters, and I live with just my mum, so I was not really didn't have that sort of same the hype around it. I didn't really tell people about Korean that much. So I was wondering if that actual sort of hype either interfered with your language learning, or where at times maybe it helped your motivation. Like, how did that play? What was the role of that project?
Yeah, dude. I mean, all I can say, it only made immersion that much more fun. Because ultimately, so it started off as I was the only one in the house immersing. And then I started, like, because I was watching, so I was basically 99% of my YouTube was Matt versus Japan. All of his, like, everything that he was talking about, I was spitting. I would be like, yo, bro, did you guys hear about, like, Stephen Krashen, dude? Like, Stephen Krashen was talking about comprehensible input, bro. Like, comprehensible input. You gotta hear this stuff. Like, it's literally the reason why people understand languages in a way that, like, optimizes their best growth and, like, getting better. Like, it's the only way, bro. Like, it's the only way. So I talk like this to them, and they'd be like, shut the fuck. Sometimes they'd be like, bro, like, I don't care. But, like, as they saw me doing it, they started to kind of be like, okay, like, you know what? This man might have something. Okay, there might actually something to this. And then eventually, I was able to. It's kind of base for me to say I was able to, but in some way or form, I kind of pushed my younger brother into, like, learning French via immersion. I was like, hey, yo, bro, all you're doing is watching anime 24/7. There's nothing wrong with that, all right? But if you're gonna do it, at least learn a language. Like, come on, man. Like, if you're gonna do anything with your free time, try learning a new skill. That was basically what I was preaching to him. And eventually, I basically convinced him to finally pick up French again. And then once he started doing that, we started actually doing some form of, like, almost like double. I don't know how to describe this. It was basically where we'd watch content together. Like, I would watch a Korean show, and he would have French subtitles. So it was a way for me to not only be with my brother watching shows together, because when you're immersing, it's kind of tough to watch stuff with your family, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So like with my brother, because he was learning French and I was learning Korean, we both had a way to consume our language. Obviously, he wasn't getting audio, but I was. He was reading the subtitles. So I'd be like, oh, what did he say there? Did he say that? And then he would read it in French. And if I heard it better than he understood in French, we could actually help each other like comprehend what we saw.
Wow.
Right? So we kind of like would bounce off each other.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
You see something based on the screen, and like I'd hear it and he wouldn't hear it, and I'd tell him it and heid be like, oh shit, that's what that meant. And I'd be like, yeah, bro, even though we're consuming two different languages. So that was like, those are the golden times of like the immersion period for me. That was like that was between my first 6 months is where we did that. Wow. And we did that progressively before I left off for university.
Wow.
And so dude, like I can't tell, like that was literally the best period immersion for me.
Well, I'm getting nostalgia from that, and I wasn't even there. That was so like, wow, that must have been such a good experience, yeah.
And like, it's tough even to like, because obviously it's pretty hard to like shove someone into like do immersion, bro, with me. Like I was kind of lucky because COVID was happening, right? It was COVID period. I was stuck in the same house as the kid. So I kind of was, it was pretty easy for me to like sneak immersion into his life a little bit better, right? To make it more fun for the both of us, right? But it's tough, right? But if you can in any way, like find a friend, a partner, a homie, any form of that to really, whether it is the same language or not, you can find ways to kind of engage with each other and progress with your language goals. And that was the way we would do it on Netflix, subtitles, audio. We'd switch it up. I'd watch a French movie with him with Korean subtitles, and we'd do the same thing. But he just liked Korean content better, so he just watched Korean shows.
Yeah, man. I mean, that was like, I was one thing I was also like kind of curious, but lately, like I said earlier, I've been having thoughts about having two languages at a really great level is probably better than being a polyglot. But obviously, for some people, their goals are different, and it really sort of varies. I was curious to what your thoughts were about sort of the whole point of language learning, if that makes sense, if there is any point. Like, why are we going this far? Like, for what reason? Why are we doing this, basically? I want to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah.
Dang, that's a strong question there, George.
Yeah,
okay. I see you come with the strong bullets. Okay. So like when I think about why do we learn languages, or when I think about the whole idea of why learn new languages at all. So first of all, even if before I enter like why we learned Korean, why I learned Korean, just the idea of languages, because recently, as I was like kind of engaging with more people, obviously, I started hearing more, like I have a professor that speaks French, and she actually engages French into like our classes in humanities. And my younger brother would tell me stories about when he was speaking French, and I'd hear him speak French with people, and I'd be like, yo, that sounds so cool. Or like, just like the ability to communicate with someone. Like I remember one of the lunch ladies in one of our cafeterias, I see her speaking Spanish. And like she's always having fun. I'm cracking jokes with her, obviously, like just talking in general. And I was just like thinking in my head, like it would be so cool if I could just like interact with her, like in her native language. She'd be like, "No way!" Like you think about the Xiaoma interactions. You see how Xiaoma is able to talk like 200 different languages, right? And you're like, "Damn, Xiaoma must just be having the time of his life." And that is a really, really like cool thing to do, like to be able to speak with someone in their native language. I think any one of you guys watching us that are currently learning language, you kind of get that. It's like to speak another language is kind of an incredible skill.
Certainly.
And like outside of that, when we think about like us, George and myself, the Matt versus Japans, the Katsumotos that engage in one language for like 4+ years, 3-4+ years, right? And trying to master it versus chasing other languages. I think it's up to personal goals. Personally, I just really felt a strong connection with Korea from that time when I was in high school. It kind of brought me into the sight of what Korea was or where Korea was, what they did, the culture. And then that kind of just carried into something that I kind of thought personally, like I could really see this language is so beautiful. The culture was so beautiful. It was one of those things that kind of gave me perspective. And I was like, it would be awesome to really have a second language. And if anything, you look at how Korea's economy is, you look at the country itself, how beautiful it is. It was one of those thoughts I had. I was like, if by any chance I wanted to escape the United States, Korea isn't that bad. Personally. Yeah. How about you though?
Me? I mean, why do what we do? I feel like the actual act of speaking the language is kind of, it feels similar to English, and that's going to sound really weird to people, but the difference is the order of your ideas are different, but the way you sort of feel is the same feeling as it is when you speak English. And that's going to sound confusing if you don't speak another language, but what that essentially means is that communication, human to human, is pretty much all the same at its core. Like when we're sad, we'll say that we're sad, we express our emotions, or we tell people directions like, hey, do this, or orders, hey, do this, do that.
Right.
And the actual sort of fundamentals of it is, the same, but there is another layer to it, which is culture, right? So in the UK, we have certain culture that doesn't necessarily apply in the US, and vice versa. Korea has its own culture and history and ways that people think. Not only is it just like a few people, this is millions of people who have fought similar ways for centuries. So all of these cultures that we acquire basically give you another life. Like you get sort of 2+1 personality, let's say. And I find that the real sort of key reason why I'm doing this, like the whole, you change your sort of perspective. And if you know anything about living life, perspective is a very powerful thing and very good thing to acquire. So for me personally, I'm more about like getting the perspective, but I don't want to just get any perspective. I want to get the highest quality that I can. So rather than learning a bunch of languages and a bunch of cultures to sort of a minimal level, going deeper into one gives me sort of helps me find the real truth of whatever it is I'm trying to look for. Like that sounds a bit like not very.
No, I know what you mean when you say that.
Yeah.
But like, I kind of have a question for you based on that, because like when I think about that idea, like as well, like when we acquire languages, what's our real purpose? Do you think you could actually approach another language, like a 3L, right?
Yeah.
Your third language, the same way you've approached Korean? Do you have that strength in you to do this? Again, that's the question I have.
As it stands, like I feel like I know why you've asked that question, because the nostalgia of like the time when we were both doing Korean, it does feel like it will never come back again. And as it stands, for the reasons I stated earlier, like having a third language is going to be tricky because there's a maintenance issue. When it's just two, there are a lot of bilingual people in this world. Like when it's just two,
right,
it's not too much of an issue.
It's easier.
But with three, one of your languages is decaying. One of your cultures is slipping away. And because of that, it's like, damn, I feel like I kind of not wasted my time necessarily, but I want my languages to be at a good level all the time. And if one of them is decaying, I kind of don't like to see that. I don't know why. So I feel because of that reason, it might be hard, but I'm not going to say it's impossible, because what I thought was impossible before, I've done and achieved, and you're exactly the same. So no, I won't say it's not impossible. Will I do it? Give me like a few more years and I'll give you a good answer. Because they're different skills. Like learning another language is a good skill, but maybe I want to learn how to get ripped and be a gym lad, and that might get shredded. But maybe getting shredded is a better solution for me, because it's different goals, different people, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, there's so many other things to do in life.
Yeah, exactly.
But like even when I think about it personally, like the whole idea of decaying languages, like learning Korean, I would say my English decayed at least by 20%.
Yes.
Personally, like the way I speak English now, I do not sound like an educated individual.
Yeah,
I think back to when I was in middle school, and I think back to that kid, and I still am wondering how the hell I spoke like I did. I listened to a video of myself in middle school talking to kids. Like I was talking to people. Like I was watching Vsauce, if you guys have heard of him. I was watching Mark Rober. I was like watching like history, different videos on YouTube. That was all the content I consumed. So like I always had some special like facts to spit at people, and like I talked like some like suburban, which I was kid from like a private school, even though I went to a public school. But I tried to talk like that kind of kid. And thinking back to that kid, I'm like, damn, bro, like my English is lacking. Like the way I be saying things like W, the way I be saying, I'm just saying random. All of my vocab now is from the little bit of English YouTube that I consume, and as you can probably tell, it's not the highest, quality like learning content anymore. It's just like fitness guys, and they don't really talk like the super athletic.
Yeah. I can totally relate.
Like back to the idea of the decaying languages, right? I feel I wouldn't be too against pursuing another language with like a full force amount of passion. Like I don't think I would put it against myself that I can't do it. Will it be the same as Korean? I think it's impossible to replicate your first time language. Obviously I haven't learned another language after Korean, so I can't really speak 100% to that, but the idea of doing what I did for Korean for another language almost seems like I wouldn't be able entirely with my whole schedule of life, what I do, that would not fit anymore. Like the way time just changes, right?
Yeah.
But had I found like currently I was looking at if I was to say there's any second language I would learn, obviously like there's Spanishes, the Frenches. Personally, Chinese has been it's like an L3, a third language to learn. Chinese has been the one that I've always kind of had in the back of my mind. Hanja, learning like to speak Chinese, Cantonese, or that kind of thing. So, like I'm really like kind of into that kind of content too. Like I've been pretty into consuming content from Taiwan and that kind of stuff. So
that's funny.
But like if I got into that country, right?
I was saying that's funny because I'm the opposite. I'm into the Japanese side more so than Chinese. So yeah, maybe we both do an L3. Maybe we both do an L3 and we come back knowing like the other side, the other two Asian languages. We'll see.
Mine's it's the anime side, and then like historical Chinese culture. You
Yeah.
know, it's either you like anime or you enjoy the history of like.
I mean, hey, Japan has more than just anime, but
I'm joking.
Yeah, I get where it.
But to close the point I was getting at, I feel like I wouldn't mind my Korean decaying the same way I kind of didn't mind my English decaying when I was pursuing Korean.
Right.
Because if it's really a current thing that like, oh, now I want to go to China, and now I want to engage with more people in China, and I want to be able to use the language in a really positive way, then I would have to accept the fact that my Korean would likely not be as high of a level as, you know, had I not learned another language, right? That's kind of like just natural. You got to accept the fact that your language will never be incredible if you're pursuing other ventures, right?
Yeah.
So I think I would accept that and just pursue it with my full heart, knowing that obviously I'll get new experiences by knowing this new language.
Yeah.
Would it be the same as Korean? Definitely not as much.
It's true, because the polyglots always say like, maintenance is like the hardest thing about doing whatever they do. But I would say, like you're right, you do kind of have to accept that, and being perfectionist is probably not a good idea, because you're never going to be as good as your native language. I mean, well, I'm going to say never say never, but
yes. It's pretty damn hard to be as good as your if anything, right? And at that note, I believe we gotta wrap this up, my guy.
You have to wrap this up.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in to the most recent episode of the Korean Always podcast. And if you're watching this at a later time, this episode of the Korean Always podcast. Thank you guys for, once again, I feel like we say this every video, being around here while we're gone. But we really, we know you guys are dying for us to really be a little bit more consistent. So, light. So we're going to try our best to bring some more content to you folks, whether that be, you know, more language learning discussions, more interviews of that such. Let us know in the comment section below what kind of content, what kind of vibes, what kind of things do you want us to do? Do you want us to hear us output? That's another thing, an output podcast.
Output podcast.
I don't know, that could happen.
Korean episode.
Let us know. Like it up. Like it up, guys. Like it.
Listen, all right. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.